See how they're still talking? All right, today we're doing the Great Depression. You'll find this handout. There will be about a 4.5-minute video that you can also watch. And then I will have your homework questions on there also, okay? So as soon as I quieten them down, we will get started. There's only 14 of them in here. It sounds like 400 sometimes. Okay? All right, we're going to stop talking. Pay attention. I always like the loudest guy in the class is the one that screams for everyone else to be quiet. Okay? That's Seth, just in case you missed a little silly thing. All right, here we go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've asked you nicely about 900 times to stop talking. Okay? Let's get through this so you have time to start your homework and probably finish it in class. Okay? It's a very short read, very short video today. Okay? All right. We've talked a little bit about some of the people that was involved in the Great Depression. Some of the aviators, some of the Great Depression, things of that nature. So today we're actually going to jump in. We talked about some of the causes. Today's kind of a recap of some of that. And then going forward this week, my goal is that we should be able to wrap up the Great Depression by mid-March. And then we'll go into World War II. That'll last us for a little while. Yeah. Yeah, he likes to study the wars, and that's okay. Yeah. The Great Depression was a time of great economic crisis during the 1930s. Okay, so it's primarily in the 1930s. It begins in the United States, but it quickly spreads throughout much of the world. If you have an opinion, why do you think it started in the United States, but why do you think it spread through the rest of the world? What do you think, Leo?
Probably because America, they have a lot of trading stuff with other countries, like a lot of business. No, it's not China's fault. So that's just racist.
Oh my God.
Okay. We're talking about 1930s here. We're not talking about modern time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like a lot of businesses from Europe probably some.
Well, I already heard him cause
got a lot of their money from the U.S. by selling the stuff to people. So when America shut down, they had no money to give to the European other businesses.
Okay. That's a good point. Think about this. The United States came out of World War I as a world power. So I think Leo's right. So we had loaned a lot of money to our European allies to help rebuild their countries. So they were relying upon the United States. The world was relying upon the United States for a lot of stuff at this point. So when it goes bad for the United States, it goes bad for the world at this point in time. Yeah, Hart.
What's happening with Canada? Like what is Canada?
Same thing. Yeah, it is a worldwide depression. It is not just in the States. Some countries are hit worse than others, obviously.
How does Canada's government run? Do they have like a president or like a?
Yeah, they have a prime minister, which is basically elected by the people.
And then it's like, is it kind of like ours? Or?
Yeah. Most countries.
Yeah, I just don't hear about a bunch of conflict in Canada. So.
Yeah. All right. How did it start? The Great Depression began with the crash of the stock market in October 1929. Okay, historian and the people who runs the economy all gave various causes for the Great Depression, but all of them included the drought in the Midwest, overproduction of goods, and that included manufacturing goods and food. If you remember, farmers was growing a lot of more food, and the price was getting driven down because anytime you overproduce something, the price goes down in order for you to be able to sell it. And once that happens, then the people that was counting on making the money from that is not making as much money, so it can cause a hardship. Okay. Banks failed. Okay, you had banks that actually just had to shut their doors, and people lost their life savings. Stock speculation. Remember people buying stocks on credit. Okay, and consumer debt for the first time ever. And a lot of this was due to new advertising and things. I mean, you know, you'd hear it on the radio, or you would you see it in a magazine or something where, and it was basically, you don't want to be the only one on your block that doesn't own this. And all of a sudden people are they think they've got to have something that 10 years before this hadn't even been invented. You know, vacuum cleaners, electric washing machines, all this stuff
Dishwashers.
that they had never had. Suddenly it was a must-have thing. Okay, so they're buying it on credit. They're going down, and at this point in time, it wasn't a credit card. You went to the store, and you would put X amount of dollars. You'd put a couple dollars down, and you'd walk out with the radio or whatever, and they set up a payment plan where you went to the store and you would pay X amount of dollars per month for that item until you paid it off. Okay? So it's great if you can make the payments, but when you start losing your jobs and things, you can't make the payments anymore. Well, that puts a hurting on the store, the manufacturing of that product, and everything starts to go south, unfortunately. And that's kind of what's happening here. Herbert Hoover, just a minute, Leo, and I'll be right with you, was the president of the United States when the Great Depression starts. Okay? And many people blamed him. They even named the shanty towns where homeless people lived Hoovervilles. Okay, this is all the cardboard shacks, tents, whatever they could find to live in. They would all get in. It was all usually in one area, a township, and they referred to them as Hoovervilles. Because of that, after the president. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt was elected president, and he promised the people of America a new deal. So people was looking for hope. Okay, they were looking for hope. So he's telling them about how he's going to make it better. So they're like, okay, let's give him a shot, because they didn't like Hoover. Yeah, Leo.
With all the new inventions coming out, like the washing machine and the dryer and that stuff, what about refrigerators? Were they already?
They did. They were coming out with refrigerators at this time. Yeah, they sure were. Yeah. Okay. Not like we think of them today. It's kind of like the washing machine, the electric washing machine. It was not the one that you're thinking about at your house where your mom just had to throw the clothes in and hit a button and it takes care of business. These were not like that. Okay, these were not like that. The electric part was
Put water in
it churned. No, you actually had to put the water in. It actually churned. It had the oh shoot, what is the thing? It oscillated back and forth. That
And then you had to do the
oscillated.
rest?
But you had to do everything else.
What?
I mean, you still had to take them out. You had to rinse them. My mom had one of these things when I was a kid, and it was like a big tub.
What, that was a
Okay.
full-day job?
Okay, oh, it was. It was a big tub, and it was on wheels, and it had this arm thing that came up that had what they called a wringer, okay? And it was basically it was two presses, she had to come in and fill this thing up with water, and then you put the clothes in, and you plugged it in, turned it on, and it would churn back and forth, and it would actually wash the clothes.
Yeah.
But then,
You had to do anything.
yeah, you turned that off, and you had these two great big tubs, and each of them had clean water in them. Again, you had to put the water in it, okay? And then you would take the clothes out of the soapy water of the washing machine, and you would run it through this wringer. Actually, I'm sorry, I'll take it back. You would take it, you would put it in the next tub over the clean water, and that would help get the soap out. Well, then you would take them out of that, and you would run them through this wringer, which was also electric. It just turned, and it kind of pressed some of the water out, and it went to that other tub
That was full of water.
that was full of clean water.
I saw this on cartoons.
And you did all that, and then you would take and you would run it through that wringer one more time and put them in the laundry basket, and then you went outside and hung them onto a clothesline. So it was an all-day job, but it was an electric washer, which they used to have to do all that by hand, so it was better.
How many people
It was better.
did your mom have to do it for? Like how many?
There was, well, when my dad was alive, there were 6 of us. I'm sorry, 7 of us. There was five brothers. It was then, after my dad died, it was 5 brothers.
That
and
would
my mom.
take like.
Oh, it was an all-day thing. Fortunately, well, each of us had like 2 pair of pants. But my mom would do laundry like 3 times a week. So, you know, all she ever did was work. Okay? The New Deal now was a series of laws and programs and government agencies enacted to help the country deal with the Great Depression. These laws place regulations on the stock market, banks, and businesses. They help put people to work and try to help feed the house and feed the poor. And many of these laws are still in place today, like the Social Security Act, where they take a little bit of money out of each paycheck. Your employer has put a little bit of money towards each of that and whatnot for help with the retirement. The Great Depression ended with the start of World War II. Okay? Isn't it kind of sad that we had to go into a world war to help bring us out of it? But because of that, the wartime economy puts people back to work.
Yeah.
They're building tanks. They're building jeeps. They're making uniforms, rifles, ammo. Farmers are growing food to ship overseas.
Water. You put chicken nuggets.
All of this stuff. So the economy starts to pick back up to make stuff for war. Okay, kind of sad, but
It
it seemed to work.
Did they ever
Yeah.
build planes?
Do what?
Was one of the jobs, you said building tanks, what about building planes?
They
They
built
built-
planes,
they
built
built-
ships, they
they
built
built
it all.
one.
Yeah, they were building it all. Well, they built it all.
Birds.
I just didn't name everything, but yes, they did. Yeah. The Great Depression ended when the start of World War II. The Great Depression left a lasting legacy on the United States. The New Deal laws significantly increased the role of government in the people's everyday lives. Also, public works built up the infrastructure of this country with construction of roads, schools, bridges, parks, airports. So the New Deal put people to work building things that would help move the country forward.
That's very small.
It was. Instead of people just sitting at home and you sending them a check, they actually had to get out and work for the money. And what they did was, like I say, helping the country move forward. Okay. Interesting facts about the Great Depression. The stock market lost almost 90% of its value. That means if you had $1,000 in there,
You get back.
then it dropped. It dropped $90 or 90%. Then your $1,000 now suddenly became worth $100.
That's just so risky.
That's a serious hit because $1,000 is quite a bit of money back in these days.
That's
Okay.
what's still. That's what's like so.
Yeah, it still is. Yeah, don't misunderstand. Yeah, it is. Not quite as much as it was back in the 1930s. Around 11,000 banks failed during the Great Depression. 11,000 banks shut their doors. And when a bank shuts its door, people can't get in and get their money. Okay? In 1929, unemployment was about 3%. In 1933, it was 25%. That means 1 out of every 4 adults that had a job was now unemployed. Okay? That's a lot of people.
They weren't.
The average family income dropped by about 40%. Okay? That means if you had a family that was making maybe making $100 a month, now they're making $60. Well, that's a hit. That's a serious hit right there. Okay?
It started in
Imagine really
1929.
poor
Yeah.
people. and they-
More than $1 billion in bank deposits were lost due to banks' closures.
A
$1
million.
billion. $1 billion with a B. The New Deal created around 100 new government offices and 40 new agencies. The worst year of the Great Depression was 1932 and 1933. About 300,000 companies went out of business. Hundreds of thousands of families could not pay their mortgage and was evicted from their home, which means they were forced to move out of their house because they couldn't make the payments. Millions of people migrated from the Dust Bowl region in the Midwest. Around 200,000 migrants moved to California. Oddly enough, California, thing about California for a minute, right now they're one of the most liberal states, inviting everybody in, people coming across the border that some people refers to as illegals, others refers to them as undocumented workers, whatever you want to call them. But they don't have the proper paperwork to come to the country. California kind of invites them in. Back in these days, they were actually trying to pass law. They actually did pass a law in California. They were trying to keep poor people out of their state.
Why?
Because they were already had plenty of them. And they were coming in trying to find jobs.
Yeah, and they didn't have any.
They didn't have, there was only so many jobs to go around. So they was actually trying to keep people out, which is kind of a complete 180 from where we are now. President Roosevelt pushed 15 major laws through his first 100 days of office. 15 major laws. Now, laws, I know a lot of you were talking about President Biden has signed like 17 executive orders. That's not a law. That's not a law. A law actually has to go before Congress and is passed and becomes law. Okay, a bill goes before Congress. If they approve it, then it can become law. Okay, there's a long, drawn-out process. In his first 100 days, he got 15 major laws passed. That's pretty remarkable. Okay, all right.
Wait, Joe Biden's already passed 17 executive.
I think that's right. I think it was 17. Okay, all right. Bye-bye.